Hello everybody, my name is Amanda and today I'm going to be filming a video just talking about my natural and unmedicated birth with this little man. He's napping on me right now, but I just want to talk about my birth experience. It was very long, but we can get into all of that right now. There's no wrong way to give birth. If you want to give birth medicated, unmedicated, natural, C-section, standing, sitting, squatting in a tub, in a shower, there's no wrong way to give birth. You're gonna have to listen to your body and you're gonna have to understand your experiences, and because what's best for you is not gonna be the best maybe for the next person. And I just wanted to preface this video by saying, there's no wrong way to give birth, and however you give birth, you're a rock star. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my birth experience. So I went into labor on a Sunday night. It was a little bit later, maybe about 10 or 11 p.m. And I wasn't really sure if I was feeling contractions at this point. I was still early too, and I knew a lot of women had felt Braxton Hicks contractions. At the point, I hadn't felt any contractions at all. So I was like, okay, maybe these are Braxton Hicks. And I think at that point I was about 37 and a half weeks pregnant, so still very early. My due date wasn't until the middle of December, and at this point it was still November. It was November 30th. So I was just trying to figure out, okay, what am I feeling? So I texted my doula just to let her know what was going on. I was like, hey, I'm feeling this. I'm not really sure if I'm in labor, but this is what I'm feeling. She was like, okay, just keep me updated. And I texted her a few hours later, maybe at 11 o'clock midnight, and I was like, hey, no, my contractions are just more intense. They weren't getting closer together, but they were definitely getting a lot more intense. And she was like, okay, this might be the start of it. Just make sure everything is prepared if you are, and just get ready to go. And at that point, I had my hospital bag packed, but Chris hadn't packed his at all. So I woke him up. He was actually sleeping at this point, because I was kind of just chilling out in the living room by myself. And I woke him up and I was like, hey, I think I'm in labor. You should probably pack your hospital bag. And he wakes up and he's like, okay, I'll go. Okay. And he's half asleep, trying to throw whatever he has into a duffel bag. And then he throws everything and then he goes, okay, now what? And I'm like, I don't know, I just feel these contractions and this is what I feel. And he's like, okay, well, can I go back to bed? And I was like, okay, sure. So at that point he went back to bed, and I kept having contractions. I texted my doula at about 5 a.m. the next morning and was like, hey, my contractions are getting a lot more intense. I think she was there by 6 or 7 the next morning. And they were just kept getting a lot more intense. We walked around, and at this point it's Monday. So we walked around Monday in the morning, and then I think at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're like, okay, it's coming, I think we're happening. So we all went to the hospital and they checked how dilated I was, and I was 1.5 centimeters, maybe 2. I think she said 2 to be nice, but she's 1.5, 2 centimeters dilated. And I was like, are you kidding me? I've been in labor for almost 24 hours and I'm not even 2 centimeters dilated. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. So we decided to leave the hospital. We had to leave the hospital. You're not allowed to stay, at least at my hospital, until you're at least 6 centimeters dilated, because they don't want people there for days. But so we went home, continued to labor for Monday night into Tuesday morning, and I was so tired at this point. I was like, dude, come, what's happening? Why is this so long? And you have to think, I went into labor on a Sunday night and it's now Tuesday morning. And my doula had actually left Monday after we left the hospital, and we're like, hey, I'll text you, I'll let you know how things go. And things got a lot more intense on Tuesday. And I wouldn't even really say a lot more intense. I would just say the contractions were just continuing to go. There was never a break at any point. I think from Sunday night until probably 4 a.m. on Wednesday morning, I had contractions about 5 minutes apart. So it was never super close together. That actually may not be right. I think my contractions started becoming 4 minutes apart, maybe when we left for the hospital on Tuesday. I know it was a little bit closer, but it wasn't necessarily the 3-1-1. 3 minutes apart, 4-1 minute, and I think there's one other thing in there. But I had a lot of just contractions. It was just very, very long. And then on Tuesday, we went to the hospital. Tuesday in the afternoon, we went to the hospital, and they were like, my midwife was there at this point. We had been texting, or not texting, we had been calling my midwife, and she was there at the hospital at this point, and she was like, okay, like you're 6 centimeters dilated, like let's go. And at this point it was probably like 7 o'clock on Tuesday night, and I gave birth the next morning at about 7:30 in the morning. So we still had about 12 hours of labor in the hospital. It was intense, man. I wouldn't say it's like so rough that like no one can do it, but it was definitely a lot, and you definitely have to be committed to having an unmedicated and natural birth, because you never really know what your birth experience is going to be like. So that is one thing I would share with you, is if your reason for wanting a natural and unmedicated birth is because your friend did it, or because so-and-so wants you to have it, or your husband wants you to have it, or whatever that reason is, if it's not something that you truly want to do, that's okay. You don't have to have that. You don't have to have an unmedicated birth. You know, you can birth however you want to birth. And there's no shame, there's no pressure. There shouldn't be pressure from other people to influence your decision. You know, it's your body, it's your baby, and you should be able to birth however you want to birth without the pressure of other people. So that's something, if you are considering a natural and unmedicated birth, I would just really challenge you to think about your reason for doing that and wanting a natural birth. For me, my reason for wanting that is because previously I had actually had kidney stones, and I had had a miscarriage prior to this pregnancy, and I had always heard that kidney stones and having a miscarriage are similar, if not the same pain as labor. And so I was like, okay, well, I did that fine. I think I just had like one Tylenol, 500 milligrams of Tylenol, and I was fine. So if that's anything comparable, or if kidney stones are worse than labor, like, I got it. And honestly, I can say it's probably about the same. Like, if you've ever had kidney stones, that is probably the same or worse pain than labor and delivery. I would even say kidney stones is a little bit worse. I had kidney stones, and obviously I had a baby, but those are both way worse pains, or like the similar pains for sure. I threw up in both of them. I was in a lot of pain for both of them, but it was just kind of like, hey, I had kidney stones, and so I can do this. Another thing that I knew about why I wanted an unmedicated and natural birth was that I knew my body was made to birth a human. You know, I'm a woman. I grew this baby in my body. Like, dude, like, I grew a human, another human being grew inside of my body. My body knows how to get that human being out. Like, think about how complex a human being is. Like, their eyes, like their brain, their lungs, their like organs, their skin, like their body. Like, my body grew another body. Like, it can get the body outside of me. And so I knew my body was made for this, and I knew it was designed to have a baby. So there was never any fear in my mind of anything just coming into play that, like, hey, I can't do this unmedicated, or whatever that may be. And ultimately, like, there are medical reasons as to why maybe your doctor or midwife may recommend not having a natural labor. But for me, I knew with my body there were no complications as far as just getting him out of me and birthing him that would prevent me from having an unmedicated and natural birth. So that's what I chose. I do want to talk about why I chose a midwifery as opposed to an OBGYN. So I had had a previous pregnancy before Ethan, and I actually miscarried that baby. Her name is Blue, but I had a very negative experience with that OBGYN. Nothing was explained to me about what my body would do, or just what was happening in my body when I had that baby and we miscarried. There was nothing explained to me. It was such an impersonal experience, and I left that just with a lot of emotional, I don't want to say trauma necessarily, but just baggage, like a lot of resentment of how that experience happened. And so I knew I wanted a much more personal experience, and I knew I could find that through a midwifery. And I completely had that experience. It was absolutely amazing. And I love all of the women who were my midwives, and we're friends with them on Instagram now. So it's so cool to see just the actual care. It's cool to know that they actually care about you. My son was admitted into the NICU, and we had to leave without him. And my midwife literally called me to check in on me and make sure I was okay. You call me crazy, but you're not gonna get a call from your OBGYN at 9 o'clock on a Friday night asking you if you're okay. That's just probably not going to happen. So that's why I just love the midwifery experience. And I did give birth in a hospital. So a lot of times midwiferys, you're giving birth in a birthing center, but my midwifery was actually attached to a hospital. So I had the attention and love of a midwifery, but within the safety of a hospital setting. So that was something that I also wanted. Next birth, who knows, maybe I'll want something different, but that's what I wanted for my first birth, and I could not be happier. I think my labor was so long so basically Ethan was in the incorrect position, but we didn't know that until literally his head was coming out. At my 36-week appointment, we did an ultrasound, and he wasn't in almost the correct position. He was almost the way the baby is supposed to be. And then sometime between my 36-week appointment and about 37.5 weeks when I delivered, he ended up turning the complete wrong way. So his head was basically grinding against my spine, and it wouldn't let him come out. So that's why my labor was so long, is because he was in the wrong position. And I think if I hadn't had a very, very strong reason for wanting an unmedicated birth, and if I didn't believe that my body was capable of birthing him, I think I would have caved and, wanted something for pain management. Because at that point, I'd had a human head grinding against my spine. There was a lot of pressure, but at the end of the day, I knew my body could do it, and my body did it with the help of my midwife. At the one point, she was hands in vagina, pulling baby out, but my body did it. So I just want to encourage you that your birth probably won't go exactly how you think it's going to go, regardless of what that means or what that looks like. Maybe you'll deliver early, maybe you'll deliver late, maybe you'll deliver at night, in the morning, and you just had envisioned something else. Maybe you didn't even realize you envisioned something else, your birth is just going to happen, and you can't control everything. But even if you do have complications in your birth or in your labor, I would really encourage you to just make sure your birth team has your back. I knew my midwife and my birth team had my back. I knew that they knew what I wanted and what was important to me. So I knew they were going to do everything in their power to give me the birth experience that I wanted, and she completely did. My midwife worked with me for so long. She was in my room for 12 hours. Your OB probably will not stay in the room with you for 12 hours. Ridiculous. The amount of care and the amount of love that I got, I wouldn't want to birth with anyone else. But what I'm saying is that even if you have complications during your labor, or even just in your pregnancy, I would really encourage you to challenge everything that your birth team says. Be like, hey, you can't, if someone tells you that you can't have a vaginal birth, I would really question, okay, why? And maybe you can't, maybe there's just certain things that just put mama at risk or baby at risk, and it's just best for you not to have that, and that's completely fine. That is nothing wrong with that. My birth plan was to have a natural and unmedicated birth as long as mom and baby were safe. So if at any point my life was in danger or baby's life was in danger, they knew that they had my permission and my full consent to do whatever they needed to do to save us. But yeah, so if there are complications, just listen to your healthcare providers and just question what they say, and make sure you're really just making the best decision for you and your family. Also, one thing I wanted to just encourage you to remember is that what you think you want for birth, you may not want that at all when labor actually comes. Like, that's something I wanted my whole pregnancy, was to be able to labor in water, in a tub specifically. For some reason, like water calms me. So in any way, shape, or form, I was a swimmer most of my life. I love being in the ocean. So I know water calms me, and I thought that I would want to labor in a tub. And when the time came, I was like, I don't want to get in the tub. Like, I can't get in there. But what really helped me was the shower. And I didn't think the shower was going to help at all when I first was in just preparing my birth plan. I didn't think that was going to be something that I wanted, but it ended up being the best thing ever and such a lifesaver as I was just going through such a long labor. So just keep in mind that something that you may want during your pregnancy for your labor, when the time actually comes, it may not be the best decision or what's most comfortable for you. I hope this video has helped you a little bit with just discovering and learning about natural and unmedicated birth. However you choose to birth at the end of the day, it's your choice, it's your body, it's your baby. Mama, you're gonna rock it and just love it. I know that's so hard when you're like pregnant and you're freaking out and everyone's telling you all these things, but you're gonna learn as you go. You're gonna figure it out. Some days are gonna suck if you wake up with morning sickness, and some days are gonna suck because you can't sleep and everything in between. But trust me, like, your body knows how to birth a baby. Like, if I could just tell you that one thing as a takeaway, your body knows how to birth a baby. Your baby has been growing in your womb for 9 months. You never told your body, hey body, like, I'm gonna build a baby now. Like, I need you to do this, 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 and this. No, your body grew a human being. Your body grew a human being, and it knows how to get it out. So if I can leave you with anything, just know that you're amazing and you're beautiful, and however you choose to birth, it's your choice and your decision. But I love you, and I hope you got something from this video.